I get a bigger office, and I have to share duties with John Hoven. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. There's a lot that changes. Obviously, the founders had a very specific role in mind for the Senate, different than the House. The ability, the opportunity really to be in the personnel business, as Leader McConnell calls it, the advise and consent of executive confirmations process of nominations to the courts, to the executive branch. That's very different. It's an important responsibility, and as it relates to the courts in particular, because it's got such long-term effects on the policies and the country well into decades. So that's a very different piece of it. The other part, frankly, as an at-large House member, where there's only one of me in the whole state. The state part of it is very much the same. It's very similar. But from a workload standpoint, I go from being on one committee to being on 5 committees. So it's a heavy lift in terms of the committee work, but that's what I like. That's what I look forward to doing. The pace of things is much slower over here. That I will have to get adjusted to. I like a faster pace. I tend to like a lot of productivity, and I know that's not necessarily a characteristic of the Senate. But I think it also presents an opportunity for real significant relationships. Not running every 2 years. Attending many more regular meetings, dining with people more often, prayer and the Bible study together. I think the Senate's designed to dig deeper.
All right, so let's talk about the first order of business.
Sure.
First, which I imagine is the government shutdown and trying to
Sure.
How do you do that, and do you feel like President Trump bears a greater part of the responsibility here, in part because he went in front of dozens of cameras and said this was a shutdown?
Well, what he said was that he's willing to shut the government down, even proud to shut the government down or let the government be shut down if he doesn't get his wall funded. I don't think anybody should be surprised by his resolve to do that, and I don't think anybody should expect anything different going forward. I expect this shutdown, the government will be reopened at some point when the president and Chuck Schumer can come to terms with the funding for the barrier at the border.
Well, what about the government employees who weren't at fault, the members of the Border Patrol who are out there working on the border and not getting paid? What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, I'd say call your Democratic senator and make sure Chuck Schumer understands how important it is that we do 2 things. 1, that we reopen the government so they can get paid, and 2, that we secure our borders so that we have border security, and frankly, let's tackle the larger immigration issue.
Is there no compromise, though? Is it $5 billion in the country wall? Is that the only answer for you?
Well, let's put it this way. There's no point in the Senate passing a bill that the president's going to veto. So really, Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump have to come to some agreement. Is it $5 billion? I don't know. My understanding is less has been offered, and that's been rejected as well by Senator Schumer. On the other hand, is there something else that the Democrats want that they would take in exchange for what the president wants? Compromise doesn't always mean less for me and less for you, or more for me and more for you. It can be, I'll give you this if you give me that. And I would expect that deal making can be very successful if they just get, if they just get together and start hashing it out.
Last question is
Shoot.
that maybe bartering chip DACA?
Maybe it is. It's interesting because the president, of course, offered in his 4 pillars DACA as one of the pillars. And we saw in that process that and this is the problem with this town in my view, there are too many people who say, I like these 3 things, but I don't like that one thing, therefore I'm a no. And then these people over here say, well, I like this thing and a couple of your things, but I don't want you to get that. We have to get over that. We have to change that culture, and we have to get the government reopened, but we also have to secure our border.
All right, I think that's all we have time for.
All right, thanks. I'm sure.